Okay, so here it says a field report from a successful Black woman who refuses to struggle for love. So, this idea, refusing to struggle for love, that's always so interesting because I'm just like, okay, I mean, I would, um, this idea of struggling for love. Let's just read what she has to say, and then we can unpack it more. Here it says a year ago, fresh out of an 8-year relationship, I decided I was going to date intentionally, which is adorable. The last time I dated was 2013. Instagram barely mattered. Nobody was optimizing their personality for the algorithm. Men were not podcast educated. High value was not a personality trait. And the phrase soft life had not yet been weaponized. Dating in 2026 is an entirely different ecosystem. Okay, real quickly, this is just my personal opinion. I personally do not understand any woman that can be in a relationship for 8 years and is not married. I couldn't do it. I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? After like after a year and a half, it's like, okay, what are we doing? And maybe, that could also be informed by my spiritual belief. Being a Christian, obviously, it's like there's very clear understandings on the process of courting to a certain extent, and then marriage. Like there's a lot of clarity behind it. So it's like for me, I'm not just like sleeping around. It's like, okay, we're courting for a purpose. You're either my husband or not. So for me, like my husband, he proposed a year in. He proposed a year in. It's like, okay, this is are you my husband or not? Then we got married. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, I cannot understand somebody being in an 8-year relationship. To me, I'm like, that's a marriage at that point. That's like common law marriage, I think, in California after 7 years. So I'm like, I just can't conceptualize being with somebody for 8 years and then it not working out. I'm like, how does that even dating somebody? And like I said, it's likely informed by my own spiritual belief. But when I hear that, I'm like, wow. I'm like, why would any woman want to be in a relationship that long without there being a clear understanding of commitment and where you're going? Maybe the exception being if you met when you were like 15. Like if y'all met when you were like in high school and you're still figuring out literally everything, and then you kind of break up and you're like, okay, 20 to 23, okay, maybe that makes sense. That to me, that's a lot more feasible. But I'm like, if you're like an adult and you're dating for like 8 years, but there's not really any clarity. I personally, I just don't understand it. I don't understand that mindset. It does not make any sense to me. That's just me. I can do it. Okay. So let me see. Now here it says, and because 99.99% of my experience has been with Black men, this is a reflection on what I've observed there. Not a universal doctrine, not an attack, not a dissertation, just lived experience, conversations with other successful Black women, and patterns that are too consistent to ignore. Okay, so, and I mentioned this in my previous live. Usually, when I hear this kind of setup, when I hear somebody, especially someone who's more educated or more affluent, being like, oh, I'm not trying to talk about you. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm not trying to say you're horrible. But like when I hear that framing, I'm always expecting the next sentence or two to be like a blatant insult. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I'm not trying to say I hate you, but Black men are trash. I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to say that you suck, but Black men are horrible. I'm not trying to blame you, but it's always your main's fault. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I hear that kind of framing where it's like they're kind of trying to butter you up, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm expecting the next sentence or two to be like just blatant insults. Now that's just me, you know what I mean? That's just me personally. That's just me personally, you know what I mean? Like I could be, that's just me. I'm not even saying that's just her in specific, but I'm saying like when I hear that language, particularly language from people who are more women specifically, Black women specifically who are educated, I'm like, okay, so you're setting me up for some form of an insult. Let me receive it. Now, this is interesting. You're saying corporate BFF made a video stating that her dad concluded that she's where did she say that on her Instagram? Is this a video you saw? Is this a Substack? Please let me know. I would be interested to see that. I'd be interested to see that. Okay. Okay, so but basically what she's saying is I'm not trying to attack black men. This is just my experience and the experience of black women that I know. Successful black women that I know. Now I wonder how she defines success, but perhaps I think she'll get into that a little bit more further on in the post. Okay. Now here it says one, supply, demand, and the equal of it all. Successful, educated black men are in high demand, and they act like it. That's not shade, that's economics. When supply is limited and demand is high, the market shifts in favor of the seller. I think this is, I don't think this is debatable. Desirable men are in high demand. That's not debatable. And as we've talked about in a lot of different ways, black men particularly, they have, to a certain extent, the pick of a litter, especially black men who are successful. They do. There's different reasons for this. We can kind of debate back and forth. Yes, there is racism. Yes, there is different prejudices they have to generally deal with. That still can happen. We've looked at this, and even if you look at dating metrics, that still can happen. But black men, by and large, tend to be some of the most desired. Even outside of white supremacy, racism, whatever. Even if you consider all that, black men still by and large are like some of the most desired across race. If you look at the interracial marriage rate, black men versus black women, black men have a higher interracial marriage rate. Black men can go abroad and have a lot more success with other races of women, right? And there's reasons for this, but what I'm just saying is ultimately she is right. Black men, particularly black men who may be considered high value, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, even the ones who aren't high value, they just look the part. You know what I mean? Like, by and large, yes, there is a level of desirability. Now, some of y'all may say, okay, it's not true love or desirability because some of it can be as fetishizing things. Some it could be more like women who just want to have a little black boy phase. But nevertheless, black men are desired by other races of women. They are. And that's what she's speaking to. Okay, here it says, now let's flip it. Successful, educated black women, we are not rare. So this is where I actually challenge her. We are statistically overperforming in education. We are building businesses. We are buying homes. We are healing. We are therapized. We are evolving. And here's the inconvenient part. We are harder to control. So this is where I think things start to kind of devolve into narrative, but not the actual truth. And this is not to downplay her own success and the success that she's been able to achieve with her friends. But the reality is successful black women, they actually are rare. And if by success she's assuming, if she's meaning education, which it seems as if she is because she brings it up, that's still a rarity. So let's go back, we can go back real quickly and let's see, educational attainment, is it here? Let's go back real quick and review just some basic stats to actually try to clarify what she's saying with what's going on today. So if by success she's meaning educational attainment and ultimately the ability of black women to get along with this current system, let's see what she has to say. Now, so if we look at educational attainment, because this is kind of what she used as one of the first barometers of success. When we look at educational attainment, yes, black women by and large do tend to have more educations than black men. And honestly, this trend is pretty consistent across all races. To my understanding, most, if not all races, have women who are in college more often than men. Now, this might be for, this is another conversation, but some of this I think could be connected to the feminization of education. But nevertheless, listen, there being more women in college than men is a general trend that you see cross-culturally. But when we actually break this down on, okay, so who's getting college degrees and who's not, we see, okay, 9% of black women have graduate or professional degrees, 6% of black men. So that's about 3% off. Yes, black women do have more degrees when you talk about graduate or professional degrees, but it's only about a 3% difference, right? Now here it says 14% of black women have bachelor's degrees compared to 12% of black men. So again, the number is higher, but it's only off by, a small percentage. Now here it says associate's degree, 10% have an associate's degree versus 7% have an associate's degree of men. So you basically see across the board, yes, black women, they do have more educational attainment than black men, but it's off by about a percentage or two. But here's the primary point. If by success we are defining educational attainment, it's still a minority of Black women who actually receive higher education. Because listen, here it says some college, no degree. These are black women who started college, didn't finish. They don't have a degree. Associate's degree, those are Black women and they got an AA, but that's not really considered. I don't think that's really considered higher. That's not like higher education. An AA can barely get you anything, honestly, in a corporate world. Honestly, AA is not getting you much. So really, where you're really talking is in the bachelor's degree realm, the realm of bachelor's degree and professional degree. And that's what, 24%. And now granted, these stats were pulled about 9 or so years ago. So these stats are a little bit old. But with the changing economy, with inflation going up and the cost of education going up, I think it's safe to assume that these numbers have become even more severe. You know what I mean? So, but the reason I'm saying that is because really, she's talking about Black women are not rare, successful Black women are not rare. If she's measuring that by educational attainment, they actually are. You're really only talking about 24% of Black women who have higher education. No, 23%. Sorry, you're talking really only about 23% of Black women who have higher education. 23. That means 3 out of 4 Black women don't. 3 out of 4 Black women do not have higher education. That's what that means. That means the majority of Black women in America do not have higher education. That means the majority of Black women do not live up to the standard that she's setting as far as success. So the reason I'm saying that is because, as we continue to go throughout this idea, this post that got all kinds of likes and virality, whatever, the framing already I'm seeing is a bit off. Because her experience and the experience of women that she's going to talk about are a minority of a minority. Only about 1 in 4, actually a little less, but only about 1 in 4 Black women are in this category of what she's referring to. And we're not even taking into consideration the amount of debt that they had to accrue to get there. And we're also not taking into consideration the amount of women who recently have lost jobs. Black women specifically. We know that Black women who were disproportionately hit by unemployment over the last year or so. So it's important to note that this framing that she set up, while it might feel true in her own particular circle, in her own niche, it is not true across the board. Successful Black women, and by successful she means college educated Black women who finished education, are still a minority. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's move on, you guys. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks to you so much for the 2. The game changer. It says California don't have common law. Okay. That's that is good to know. I mean, I've never looked into it. I never looked into it, game changer. And so you're probably right. I mean, I just got married, so it didn't really bother me either way. But yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the rest of the post. I just wanted to hop real briefly into some of the stats because what she was saying, as we can see, is not in alignment with what the numbers are actually showing. Okay, so let's go back to the post. This whole idea of Black women being, successful, educated, therapied up, all those things. Okay. It says we're building businesses, we're buying homes, we are healing, we are therapized, we are evolving. So again, all of these things, they are likely true perhaps in her small circle of success, in her small circle of whatever. And this is no shade to her. But this is not a general reality. Home ownership across the board for all races has gone significantly down. You know what I mean? Homelessness and the van life journey has skyrocketed. I mean, y'all have seen the amount of homeless, by choice van life journeys that I've covered off on my channel. Those of you guys who've been following me for some months now. So, I mean, with again the change of the economy and with inflation and things like that, which has disproportionately impacted women, this is not true collectively. This might be true for a small select group of Black women. Shout out to them. This is not a general rule. So the reason I'm saying that is because everything that she's saying already out the gate is set and based upon a false paradigm. It's based upon a paradigm or criteria that actually does not exist. Successful, educated Black women are actually where Black women who are outperforming in home ownership and businesses. And by businesses, Kiki's nails, because a lot of women will talk about, oh, Black women start businesses the most. They do start businesses at a higher rate. But okay, how many of them are like solopreneurs, such as like Kiki's nails? Okay, shout out to Kiki for her nails. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But how many of them are Kiki's nails and Lele's braids? You know what I mean? How many are them versus like, okay, you got seed funding and now you have a staff of 5 that you're starting with, you're incubating, you have a board, you have people that you are actually following up with, people who are invested in your business, and then now you're growing. That's one of the conversations. The majority of the businesses that Black women start, are solo. Oh, they're like solo. They're like, it's like her. You know what I mean? It's one person. It's not employing multiple people. And again, I'm not trying to undermine entrepreneurship among Black women. I didn't see anything wrong with that, but I'm saying we have to look at these things in context, because it can be really easy to kind of get in our high horse based upon things that are actually not true. But then when you actually start to kind of dig a little bit more deeply into what's being said, it's like, oh, let's actually be a lot more humble with this. We're actually not higher. We're not, out higher or out competing or whatever in the way that we may think. Okay. Okay, so it says, here's the inconvenient part. We are harder to control. Okay, I don't know who's trying to control you, but okay. Here's the thing about it. Having standards as a man, or just in general in dating, is not control. It's not control. It's just like, this is my standard. You live up to it. You do not live up to it. Here it says, you can't dangle money over us if we make our own. You can't gaslight us if we've already unpacked our trauma in therapy. You can't tell us to be more feminine when we know exactly who we are. Dating a successful Black woman is not hard work. It is reflective work. And not everybody wants to look in the mirror. So again, notice how she is defining successful based upon her educational attainment and ultimately her ability to socially or economically climb. Everything that she defined as success was based upon a woman's ability to make money. And I have no problem with that. I see nothing wrong with a woman's ability to make money. I think she should. I encourage all women to have skills. I think it's good to have a skill, even if you are a stay-at-home housewife or whatever, and you end up wanting to just spend all your time. I think it's just still good to have I think it's still healthy for a woman to have a skill or have a passion that she's something that she's into. I think that that's important. So I'm not opposed to that. But what I'm saying is, notice the way that she defines successful. It has everything to do with her ability to pay bills, or basically, her ability to maintain herself economically. But the problem is, the conversation that we're talking about is about romance. It's about dating and relationships. The context of this whole conversation is romance. It's Black men and Black women getting together. It's love. So it's interesting that she's talking about, oh, I'm successful because I have, all these cars and stuff, but it's like, wait, but you're talking about love. And the reason I'm calling that out is because Black women, a lot of times when they have education, when they have money, they think that somehow that makes them more desirable in the dating market. They think that somehow that makes them more desirable by men, and it doesn't. Men don't care at all. If you have a graduate degree, or if you have an A versus a GED, a lot of men don't care if you're unattractive to them. Now, they might care if you have a graduate degree, if you look good in your cap and gown. You know what I mean? If you are attractive while you're holding that diploma, okay, then they're going to care. But what I'm saying is, like, you as a educated woman, having a degree, having a condo, being therapied, whatever, a lot of men, that doesn't like inherently turn men on. Men are not inherently turned on by a woman who can pay her bills or has a car or a condo. And so the problem with this framing is, like, she's positioning herself as successful and desirable on the dating market because of her money. And it's as if, like, there's not an understanding that men don't really care about your money. Like, they're not turned on by that. Now there are in some instances, like because of the economy, there are more men now who may just want a woman to be able to pay her, pull her own weight financially. So it's like they don't want to feel like they're being taken advantage of. But what I'm saying is like a woman having a degree or having a job does not inherently make her more desirable to men. That's the heart, and that's the thing that women like it's like they don't get it. We saw this with Kevin Samuels, who was like, I'm a PhD. We've seen this over and over again with some of these different dating shows, and it's like ladies don't either they don't understand or they refuse to listen. Yeah, you said a woman's ability to make money is attractive. Exactly, the pimps. But like to the kind of men that she's likely desiring, to the kind of men that ladies collectively say that they desire, these men don't care about your money. They care about how good do you look to them and how well of a feminine counterpart are you. Okay, it's great that you can close a sale. Do you know how to cook a meal? Okay, it's great that you just acquired your second condo. Do you look good in heels? Okay, it's great that maybe you can speak Latin. Are you nice? Are you cooperative? You know what I mean? Like these skills that you may learn in school, they don't automatically translate into your ability to be a good girlfriend, wife, any of that stuff. And so as I'm reading this and she puts, okay, be more feminine, it's really what I'm thinking is if you are a woman who led with your career in dating and mating, and you're leading with your career with, the kind of straight alpha high value men, yeah, they're going to be like be more feminine because they're not trying to date their coworker. They don't want to feel like they're dating a coworker or a dude. They want to date somebody that has feminine qualities. But if like you kind of have a chip on your shoulder and you're like, oh, I went to an Ivy League school or this and that, then they're gonna be like, bro, can you just like be a woman? Like, I don't, I'm not trying to date a professor. I'm not trying to date like I said, a boss babe. I want to date a woman. I want to be with a woman. And so sometimes I think black ladies, I think educated, all of that. I think we don't understand. Like we may get in our feels when you hear, okay, be more feminine. We may get offended by that, thinking like people are trying to control us. But it's like, no, you don't understand that like you're leading with an aspect of yourself that is not necessarily what men are looking for. And you do want to also understand what men are looking for if you're dating. And it's not even about having to like change yourself. It's not even about having to like be what you're not, but it's just about being a woman. You know what I mean? It's just about being in your feminine. But I don't know, for some reason, that like I said, there's this disconnect because women are attracted to men who have degrees in multiple condos and houses and all this kind of different stuff because women are attracted to that. They think men are, and they're not. And for some reason, in our brains as women, and some reason as our brain, especially as like educated women, it's almost seen as offensive to tell an educated woman that you still may have to modify your behavior in a way so that a man will be able to connect with you. Some are just not willing to do it. They're not willing to do it at all. You know what I mean? So I'm reading this. Okay, so here it says, dating a successful black woman is not hard work, it's reflective work. She's defining successful as a black woman who has a degree. My thing is, you having a degree doesn't mean that you're successful in the realm of dating and mating. You might be successful in the realm of being able to get a corporate job, but in the realm of dating and mating, that does not equate to success as a woman. And that's what a lot of ladies don't like to hear. They don't like to hear, like, that may be offensive. But it's like, if you haven't nurtured those feminine qualities that actually are required in order to get along with a man, then you're not going to get it. Like that's kind of like a straight man being like, oh, you know what? Well, I do my eyebrows, or like, oh man, my nails are did, or oh, I don't know, like my beard is really moisturized. You know what I mean? Like if you just had like straight men going online and like talking about, oh, I'm a successful man, I'm high value because I have a soft beard, or I'm high value because my skin is glistening, or I'm high value because I iron my shirt. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying, like, if I'm trying to think of like a male equivalent, like a straight man being like, "Oh, I'm high value because I know how to do a woman's makeup. I know how to beat my girl's face. I mean, well, not like physically, you know what I mean, like beat her face with makeup, not like DV. I said that wrong, but you know what I mean. Like I would know how to do my girl's makeup. Like women are gonna look at that and being like, bro, you're not high value because you know how to do makeup. You're not high value because your beard is soft. Like those are nice things, I think, but like that's not necessarily gonna make a woman attractive. Like a straight heterosexual man going online and trying to position himself as a desirable man because he knows how to do makeup, or because he has a soft beard, or because I don't know, like his shoes matches his shirt. Like women would be like, okay, that's whatever, but what's your money like though, bro? You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is it's kind of like the same way when women go online and say that they're high value, but then they start leading with things that men don't care about. Like most women don't care that a man goes and gets his eyebrows waxed. Like that's not turning them on. Knowing that their man that they're interested in dating gets their eyebrows waxed is not really turning them on. Yeah, I know how to twist women's dreads. A man being like, "Oh, I'm high value because I know how to twist a woman's dreads. Oh, I'm high value because I know how to sew my girl's weave-in." Woman would be like, "Bro, like that doesn't make you high value. That actually makes you gay, probably." You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to draw an equivalent. I'm trying to make women understand what it's like for men when women lead with their degrees. Dudes are like, "Okay, that's cool, but that doesn't do anything for them." Right. Yeah, you said like a man bragging about his video. I'm a high value man because well, I don't even know what games are. What is it like? Madden, because I'm a Madden king. I'm a high value man because I'm a Madden king. You know what I mean? And you're right. You said I literally heard said no man ever. Right. Said no man ever. But I'm just trying to use it as an example of like the same way a woman would be like, bro, I don't care. Does nothing for me is the exact same way. It's literally the exact same way a man would be like, bro, I don't care that you have a PhD. That does nothing for me. How do you look? Are you nice? Oh, Mr. Super Chat. Okay. Oh, here it says, why do black women have therapy and white women have gym? Well, here's the thing I know about. See, white women will do both. White women will do both. They'll do their therapy. They'll go to the gym too. They'll be pressed about it. Right. Right. I'm trying to paint an equivalent on how like unrelatable that is. Okay. There's a lot of men, especially the ones who feel like they are the prize, want ease. They want admiration without accountability. They want to be coddled, affirmed, mothered. They want a woman who adjusts to them. Not one who requires them to grow. And when you are used to being scarce, you start behaving like you were irreplaceable. So she's saying that the men that she's with have standards that she's not particularly happy about. She says they want to be coddled, affirmed, mothered. Okay, what I'm wondering is, okay, if what she's considering coddled, affirmed, and mothered is just being feminine, wanting someone who is supportive, wanting someone who is encouraging, wanting someone who can, support his vision. Like these are feminine qualities, but the way that she's expressing it as if it's something that's negative. And it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. But I'm like, this is where when I start to read through these things, I'm like, is the issue really that you're dealing with immature men, or is it that there's not an understanding of the masculine and feminine exchange? Because a feminine woman is going to encourage. A feminine woman is going to be inspirational, is going to inspire. A feminine woman is going to uplift. It's not to say that it's not saying that she doesn't, she'll never have pushback or she'll never have insight. It's not that, but I'm just saying the nature of a woman that a lot of men will maybe attracted to in this capacity is going to be one that's feminine. Feminine qualities are naturally that. They're naturally nurturing. So if you kind of have this whole like, oh, I'm not doing all that for you. I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that. Okay, you're not obligated to. but then the man that you're with may not want to be with you either. I mean, and then it says you start behaving like you're irreplaceable. So this idea of like these high value black men who are scarce behave in a way as if it almost is positioning this idea as if they're too egotistical, basically. Okay, here it says the nostalgia trap. There's a growing romanticization of our grandparents' era. I just want a traditional woman. I want someone feminine. I'm old fashioned. The problem is not tradition. The problem is selective memory. That era looks stable from the outside, two parent households, clear gender roles, defined structure. But for many women in that generation, it also meant enduring cheating, abuse, financial dependence, and silence. It meant staying because you had no options. We do not want to return to a time when we had fewer rights and fewer exits. So this is again where I am starting to call BS, because again, it's all, first of all, it's all being told from the lens of the woman. Second of all, it's just assuming that those relationships were inherently abusive, inherently misogynistic, and that it was all one-sided. It's completely told from the feminist lens. But here's something else that I think I find problematic. So this whole, I want a traditional woman, I want someone feminine, I'm old-fashioned. The reason I don't necessarily see a problem with that is because the expectations that are put on a lot of these men is for them to still be traditional. So if your expectation is that this man has to pay, he has to be able to, essentially be at or be above my level, treat me like a princess, treat me beautiful, treat me, if the expectation are all those things, if there's still very traditional expectations of a man, that is not it's not unreasonable that he would therefore have expectations of a woman. And then they're saying the era looks stable from the outside, two-parent households, clear gender roles. So, and here, this feminist framing, right, where it's like, oh, it looks stable, but inwardly, okay, black marriages, everyone was being beat up and the black women were being oppressed. Okay, so if that's true, then why are you trying to get with a black man? What's even the point? If your understanding of black love and black marriage and relationships is that it was inherently abusive in those kind of contexts, why even deal with black men? So to me, that's where I'm kind of like, I look at this stuff and I'm like, no, there's a problem here, in my opinion, because there's still a desire for patriarchal standards. There's still the demand for patriarchal standards on the man's part. But then when the man is therefore requiring a patriarchal or feminine reciprocation, then there's a problem about it. Then they're like, oh, well, no, we don't want to do that because that's oppressive. And that's where I think there's a big disconnect. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through this. Says, and yet I've noticed many black men are either apolitical, agnostic to social issues, or quietly conservative in ways that directly impacts women's autonomy. There's a longing for simpler times without acknowledgement of who those times were simple for. That's just not true. I mean, black men, more than any other race of men, are still the most politically aligned with women. To act as if black men are just sitting on their hands and are not the most liberal, I think is very, very, I think that's disingenuous, honestly. Now she might be running into black men who are pushing back against anti-black misandry that is really prevalent in the left. We see that. There are some black men who actually are conservative or lean conservative simply because they hate baby mama culture and simply because they hate that their tax dollars are going to women that they believe are taking advantage of the system. Like there are some black men that I've noticed who actively vote Republican, not even because they like the Republican Party, because they're just like, F the Democrats, and I don't want to give my money to Keisha. Like literally that. Like you mean there's all kind of different stuff. But even yet and still, most black men are politically aligned with black women. Most black men still vote for the Democrats. Most black men have no problem with black female leadership. Like we see that all the time in the polls. So this idea that black men are like some like MAGA, hat Trump supporting white supremacists in blackface is almost as if she's promoting that. To me, that's kind of how I'm reading it to a little bit. It's just not true. It's just simply not true. And it says nostalgia is easy when history was kind to you. It is less charming when it wasn't. And that to me is also just like, when was history ever kind to black men ever? This whole idea of like black men looking back to the 50s and 60s or whatever through a lens of nostalgia is like, bro, like, do you understand black history? Black men were like the primary targets of institutional racism and terrorism. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like if you look at the unalivings, if you will, if you look at the amount of people who were put in prison, black men were the primary target of the state. There is no romanticizing the past, really. There is no romanticizing like, oh man, black men had it so easy in the 50s and 60s. What? What are you talking about? That's not true. There was racial terrorism everywhere. So this is that's I'm like, I don't understand this framing. I don't know who she's talking to or who she's met with, but I don't know any black man who was like, yeah, I just wish we were back in the 50s and 60s where we were running for our life. I don't understand this. I'm pro-black, I'm anti-struggle. Here it says, this is the part that makes people uncomfortable. As black people, so much of our collective achievement has come through struggle, survival, endurance, resistance. We've been taught that if it costs you something, it's valuable. If it hurts, it's meaningful. But somewhere along the way, that logic bled into love. We normalized chaos as chemistry. We labeled instability as passion. We rebranded inconsistency as he's just figuring it out. And if she stays, she's loyal, she's a ride or die. So this is where I feel like the whole narrative falls apart. Because the first, the first few posts, she's talking about how black men collectively, basically, high value black men, they are in high demand and they're a bit prideful, essentially, or they're a bit egotistical, and they almost have standards that seem, they have standards that she's not willing to really abide by. That's really what I'm kind of gathering. But notice the context is these are high value black men who are successful, who are more rare, which she talks about within, I think, the first and second slide, and therefore of high demand. Now she's saying these same successful black men, she's alluding to the fact that they are chaotic, that they are unstable, and that they're inconsistent. And the thing about it is, I'm like, okay, so if you're with a high value black man, he's not going to be unstable. He's not going to be, kind of confused figuring these things out. She's talking about, oh, you're a ride or die right figuring things out. Like, that's not a high value black man. You're talking maybe more about a man that doesn't have his stuff together. But the high value black man that you alluded to, like in the first slide or two, they know what they're doing. They may not have the whole picture, but they have a vision and they have a plan. And they have something they're working towards, which is why they're very specific about the things that they want. So notice how she's punching up in high value black men, but then now when she's describing the interactions, it doesn't sound like she's talking about high value black men. It sounds like she's dealing more with men who ain't got their stuff together. Because she's like, okay, chaos, huh? Okay, instability, what? Okay, inconsistency, huh? But the men you just talked about before were very clear about what they want. You just said you didn't want to live up to it. So what is it? Is it that you're with men who have unrealistic expectations that you don't want? Or is it that you're with men who are inconsistent and don't have their life together? Which is it? So that's why I'm just like, I'm reading this and I'm just like, bro, this is starting to really fall apart to me, because the kind of men that you're describing as your own experience are not consistent with the high value black men that you're trying to attack. And that leads me to believe that she's maybe had more interactions with like the kind of the people that Ari Lennox was honest about, where she's like, man, I feel like I'm attracted to toxic men who pretty much don't have their life together. I'm wondering how many of these experiences that she's filtering through that lens. Because we all know plenty of black women, educated black women, high performing black women who's sitting down there laying down with Pookie. We've all seen it. We've all seen it. Here it says, but I do not want to endure love. I want to rest in it. I want love to regulate my nervous system, not fry it. I want it to be a refuge from the world, not another battleground. I want consistency without confusion, affection without anxiety, commitment without coercion. Struggle built our ancestors. It does not need to be the down payment for my marriage. Okay. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, she just, okay, that's what you want. I'm like, this to me, I'm just like, you want to be loved. Okay. Love itself and marriage itself, there is a level of, there's always going to be, I don't want to say level of chaos, but there's always going to be a level of friction. Anytime two people are coming together and building a life together, like it's not going to always be perfect. When you're learning how to compromise, there's going to be friction, but it doesn't mean that it has to be chaotic or anxious. But this idea that this idea that working through challenges is struggle love to me is kind of like a problem because I'm like, yeah, even the most healthy relationships are still going to have friction at some point. But just because you're experiencing friction doesn't always mean that it's struggle love. We need to be more clear and define struggle love versus like healthy conflict. Says, now let me say this clearly, not all Black men, but when the same themes show up in my life and in the lives of hundreds of successful Black women I speak to, it stops feeling random. We want to marry Black men, we want beautiful Black families, we want cultural alignment and shared experience, but not in change for chaos. See, now the reason I wanted to share the examples that I did earlier is because how many examples that I showed you from mainstream pop culture actually cultivate marriage, wife culture? How many of them? I sat there and showed you a video from Tisha Campbell, who's almost 60, where she's talking about, I'm just still trying to figure out how to love myself. I've never been loved. Zero understanding of how to keep a family together. Everything from, popular examples from bell hooks, feminists like her, education, talking about how marriage is patriarchal oppression, how more traditional gender roles is patriarchal oppression. Like, we want things that we haven't been trained and cultivated to actually have. This is what I'm essentially trying to say. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. You have Black women who want it, who desire it, but have no understanding and no willingness to actually go through the process sometimes to make themselves open to it, in my opinion. And that's a big problem because it's like we don't exist in a wife culture. We don't. So if you want to be a wife, you can be, but you're likely going to have to address some of the beliefs that you grew up hearing. Because best believe, honey, it's not cultivating the ability for you to be able to maintain a relationship. You going to college and getting an education has nothing to do with your ability to actually maintain a happy and healthy marriage. It does not. It doesn't. It does not. So here she's positioning as if, oh, Black women want marriage. We want it, but we don't want it with chaos. And the context is that all Black women are getting in these interactions with Black men is chaos. That's kind of what's being explicitly said. And so, again, it's Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. It's Black men's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault, right? But the way that she's positioning it, you notice how she started off with, okay, Black, high value Black men, they have these standards, they have these standards and things that we're not willing to live up to. But then she kind of transitioned into, oh, okay, but they're chaotic and they're all over the place and they want, they're struggling and they want us to struggle with them. And I'm just like, I don't think you're even being fully upfront about the kind of Black men that you're dealing with, because the kind of men that you described in the first section of the post does not reflect the kind of Black men that you say you've actually interacted with. Is the problem Black men collectively, or is the problem the kind of Black men that perhaps you've been in retrospect, there were some men that I looked past who were good that I was bored by, but now they have happy relationships. And the men that I engaged who were exciting were hella toxic. And I'm just wondering if this lady herself also fell into that same cycle. I'm not saying that there aren't Black men out there who have issues. Yes, like I said, the Black American culture, period, is not a marriage producing culture. It doesn't produce wives, it doesn't produce husbands by and large. However, with that said, Black men still are married more than Black women, and Black men are able to successfully marry out more than Black women. What is that showing? To me, that's showing that perhaps Black men are not as bad or as horrible as Black women are thinking. Perhaps there's also issues and challenges that Black women themselves also have to deal with. Because if they were so horrible and so unmarriageable and so unworthy, then I'm like, I don't think anybody would be with them. Nobody would want to date and marry them. But you have these men who are able to successfully date and marry out. I'm not saying it's all perfect. I'm not saying that they're all perfect. But what I'm saying is, like, I think we have to expand the narrative. The narrative cannot always be it's Jermaine's fault. If the narrative continues to be it's Tremaine's fault and nobody's ever loved me properly, then there's never any ability for self-reflection. Here it says, and here's a shift that feels seismic. Many successful Black women are experiencing peaceful solitude for the first time in their lives. How many decades have they been saying this now? They're talking about being at peace, but it's like you're clearly not at peace if, like, every other month I'm hearing a Black woman go online, going out of her way to insult Black men. You're not at peace. You're lying. If you were truly at peace, we wouldn't hear from you. You'd be quietly enjoying your peace. You wouldn't be doing whole think pieces with thousands of likes. You wouldn't be doing part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You wouldn't be having entire blogs dedicated to the challenges of Black women in dating if you're really at peace. That's a lie. I don't believe it. This is why I continue to share videos of Black women going online crashing out about being single. Not because I'm happy to see women sad to be single. And not because I don't necessarily believe, I believe there are people who actually can be single and happy, men and women. I do believe that can happen. But I think a lot of these women are calling cap, because if you're saying you're at peace, but every 15 seconds a Black man is in your mouth, you're constantly judging who Black men are dating, or talking about them being colorist, or, like I said, you're going out of their way to talk about the ways in which they're inefficient, you're not at peace, in my opinion. Okay. We grew up in homes marked by scarcity, instability, or survival mode. Now we have built quiet apartments, curated routines, stable incomes, regulated nervous systems. Our homes are no longer chaotic; they are sanctuaries. And when you have fought to build peace, you do not invite disturbance casually. So she just said the quiet part out loud. We were not raised in families to learn how to be wives. We were raised in survival mode. Now that we have a little nice apartment with a stable income, and now that we took a little therapy that taught us how to not always live from a place of scarcity, we feel better. But just because now, okay, you went through some therapy and learned that you don't have to be in fear that you're not going to know your next meal is from, but you're a little bit more stable, still doesn't mean that you have the qualities and the capacity to know how to be a wife. That means nothing. So she said the quiet part out loud. Basically, we wasn't raised on how to be wives. Now we got an apartment, compare our bills, and we're not, in survival mode all the time, but we still don't know how to be wives. Because if you were in survival mode, literally for always and forever, then it's like, at what point were these things imparted to you? She's saying the quiet part out loud, but trying to make it, and notice again the framing. The framing in this is that Black women are the moral authority. That's what I'm saying. A lot of the framing around these things is that Black women are the moral authority, that they are the moral standard, and that Black men, or that men collectively, are not on the same level morally as women. Our peace has become a fortress. Only men who add to the stability get access. That requires consistency, emotional maturity, effort, generosity, leadership that is protective, not performative. So this is what I call the BS. Y'all say I want leadership, but then when a man wants to lead, then you're saying that he's patriarchal, that he's controlling, that he's all these different things. A lot of these ladies don't want leadership. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of being controlled. They grew up in survival mode where they didn't feel like they were in control. Now they feel like they're in control because they have a nice little corporate job. But as soon as they're with a man who has some standards and who maybe have a vision or a way of doing things that's different than you, then you're mad and you feel like he's controlling you when he's actually trying to give you leadership. You want to be protected, but you don't want to receive the guidance that a man's going to have to give to protect you. A lot of the stuff, they don't, and that's what I'm saying, we don't understand. This stuff is cultural. Because in some men, especially those used to being in demand, prefer easier options. Women they can impress with money. Women they can intimidate. Women who will tolerate misalignment for proximity to status. See, and this is the subtle shade. It's a way of looking at women who have been able to find successful relationships with high value men and say, oh, they're only in relationships because she's basically making herself smaller. It's this whole idea of just like, again, you create yourself as like the moral hierarchy, the moral authority, as if like a woman who is in a relationship with a successful man is only in that because she has to make herself smaller. Is only in that relationship because she doesn't mind being controlled. She doesn't mind being abused. And it's like, no, she might actually just be a good fit for him. Maybe she's truly resting in her feminine, and she may have her own degree, she may have her own career, she may have her own thing that she does, but she and him know how to work together. He doesn't feel like he's dating a dude. He doesn't feel like he's constantly at war at home. He doesn't feel like he's constantly having to like debate everything. He doesn't feel like his masculinity is always being undermined. But some ladies, they don't understand that. And so because they don't understand that, they're going to look at a woman who's with a man and happy, or they're functional, and be like, oh, that's because she's making herself smaller. Oh, that's because he must be abusing her, or he must be doing something. They're like, there must be something wrong for them to be together. There's not a reality in which a woman and a man, a black woman and a black man, can be together and be happy, and she's not being abused. It's like a very subtle shade. It's a very subtle shade for those women who have been able to find success. And honestly, I think it's because these ladies don't know how to find success. They don't understand the ways in which they can still undermine men and still undermine relationships. But instead of acknowledging that, then it's like, oh no, it's Jermaine's fault. And it's like, ma'am, you just sat there and said a few slides before that you grew up in survival mode. And now because you got a little corporate job and you have a nice apartment, okay, and you're not stressed out about where your next meal is coming from, your nervous system is regulated, that means now you think you're a wife. No, it doesn't work like that. There's still things that you have to learn. And like, shout out to you for, getting out of that survival mode. That's not to undermine the progress you've been able to make, but there's still other things that you might need to learn to do. But instead of doing that, now you have to just like blame men when you are having challenges. And it's like, no. At least Ari Lennox was just like, okay, I think I still have some healing to do. That might be in me. That might be a more healthier approach. Okay, so black women opt out entirely. Some date outside their race. Some, like me, are at least considering dating outside the country. That's going to work out well. Because when you live in an unaffordable, high-stress society, it distorts everything, including relationships. Scarcity breeds ego. Financial pressures magnifies power struggles. And suddenly, successful becomes a relative term depending on the market you're in. More options shift power. And when women have power and choice, we are less likely to settle for someone who meets 6 out of 10 requirements and calls it destiny. Listen, be a passport sis. I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying, I'm like, are these women going to be okay going to these other countries, these other developing nations, where they may find a man that they find sexually attracted to, but now you won't have to pay the bill? How you gonna feel about that? How you gonna feel about it? This is not bitterness. When I see women say this stuff all the time, I'm just like, oh, I'm not mad. I'm like, girl, you hella mad. I'm not bitter, girl. Get out of here. This is not bitterness, it's analysis. This is not anti-black men, it's anti-dysfunction. What the hell? I'm just like, this is the whole gaslighting stuff that we do. This is, to me, is like the nasty nice stuff. Like, I'm not trying to talk about black men, but black men are trash. I'm not trying to say that, you should blame black men, but it's always black men's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. I'm not trying to say you're horrible, but you suck. It's like, ma'am. Just, I am pro black, I am pro love, I am pro family, I'm just no longer pro chaos. It's like, girl, maybe this is what happens when black women heal, when we get quiet, when we taste stability and realize we like it. Maybe the real revolution is not finding a man. Maybe it's refusing to abandon ourselves to keep one. This concludes my sociological field report. I will continue gathering data. I'm like, girl, to me, I'm like, okay, so this got cringier and cringier. Because it's always Jermaine's fault. I wish I heard just a little bit of self-reflection. Just a little bit. Like, just even a little bit. But basically what you're saying is there are no men on your level, on your socioeconomic level, that you can connect with. It is to say that you didn't got to a certain point because you didn't healed and therapied up and got a little stable place because you grew up in survival mode. But all these men that are on your level are not choosing you. But it's their fault. I mean, to me, I see this stuff and I'm like, we don't have any, there's no self-reflection. I am not sitting here and saying that that all black men are perfect. I don't think any of you guys who are listening to me would be like, oh, black men are perfect and do no wrong. Obviously not. I challenge the inability for there to be even just a monocle, just even a small percentage of self-reflection. Even a small percentage. A small percentage. If the narrative is always that it's Jermaine's fault, meanwhile Jermaine is still getting married, meanwhile the Jermaine in your class is getting with other races of women, in some instances still other black women. And if your idea of the why they're able to find love is because they're getting with women who are willing to what and somehow disrespect themselves, if the common denominator in all these failed relationships is you, is there not at least a consideration that there still might be something in you? And I'm saying this more from a general standpoint. Is there not at least a consideration that there still might be something in you that needs to heal? That's all I'm saying. It's just, to me, it's the lack of self reflection that's really problematic. The lack of self reflection, the inability to be like, oh, okay, so why can't I? Just because you went to therapy and were able to get out of a survival mode when it comes to finances does not mean that you still have learned the ability and have a healthy understanding of how to even get along with a man and how to even respect a man. Start there. Because nothing about what she said here shows any moniker of respect. And if for no other reason, that's going to undermine your ability as a woman. If you don't respect the men that you're attracted to, you're not going to be able to get along with them. Respect is essential to men. It's like women really need to feel loved. Men need to feel respected. They need to feel respected. And there's nothing about any of their support that shows even a monicum of respect for men. Even a small iota, even a small black men specifically. This is total and complete disrespect under the lens of this is just my experience. And that's fine. I mean, you can have your experience. But what I'm saying is that if that's the energy that you're bringing into any of your relationships and interactions, it is not surprising to me that it hasn't translated into anything good or healthy. Respect is essential. It is essential. It doesn't mean that you have to always understand or agree, but that is very important. So, I thought this was interesting. I mean, she goes into other posts. I'm gonna have to wrap this up though, because it's getting late. But I'm glad we were able to get through. I'm glad we were able to get through this post. If you look through some of the comments, you're gonna see women who agree. They agree. It's always Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. Okay, fine. Let's just assume it's true. Let's assume we can blame Jermaine. Y'all mean to tell me that Keisha ain't also got things to work on? I just started off the live with a whole bunch of different examples on how and why Black women are not prepared for marriage. So if we can argue that Black men are not prepared for marriage for whatever reason, they're not prepared for relationships, fine. We have to also be an acknowledgement that it's the same way for Black women because they grew up in the same families, in the same households, under the same training. And just because he was able to get you a low degree, just because he was able to get you a little piece of paper, and you work in a little nice corporate office, does not translate into your ability to actually be in a healthy relationship. Does not translate in your ability to be able to nurture a family. There is no correlation. Just because you can speak, I don't know, you can speak Spanish or you can balance a spreadsheet. Okay, just because you know how to run a marketing meeting does not know you know how to be a wife. Doesn't mean you have any understanding on how to be a man's support or how to work together with a man in any capacity that's healthy for both of y'all. It means nothing. Your educational achievement does not equate in any way, shape, or form to your ability to be a good and functional partner, wife, none of that. And that's what's missing from this. Because, like I said, her whole framing of successful was a woman's ability to pay her bills. She mentioned nothing that had anything to do with a relationship interaction quality, none of the soft skills, none of the intangible things that are essential to a relationship. She mentioned none of it. All she mentioned was, I got my bills paid, and I went to therapy. Again, means nothing. If you went to a therapist, let's say you went to a therapist, she was single, she feminist, she don't like men. That's not translating to your ability to be a wife. And this is not translating. So That's what I'm saying. These kind of different things where you see women go and blame Jermaine. It's like, okay, let's just assume everything you said about Jermaine is true. Just for the sake of the argument, let us just assume everything you said about Jermaine is true. Are you really gonna sit here and tell me that Keisha still ain't got things to work on? You just sat here and acknowledged that you grew up in a survival mode. We just sat here and looked at countless examples of how Black women grow up in societies that tell them that marriage is trash, that marriage is patriarchal oppression, that covenant commitment with a man is oppression, is basically going to put them in a scenario where they're going to be abused. We just saw countless Black women talk about how men aren't good enough. Even when they're on their level, they're not good enough. We just sat here and looked at examples of Black women who are elders sit there and tell you how they don't have the ability to impart anything related to marriage and family. So you grew up in a culture, not only of survival mode, you grew up in a culture where you weren't trained or taught, and you had zero examples in how to even be a functional partner, girlfriend, let alone wife. You had zero examples of that. But you think that now, because you have a degree, a piece of paper, and because you had a therapy session or two, now all of a sudden you're the moral hierarchy. Now all of a sudden you're the moral authority. It doesn't work like that. There's brokenness on both sides. On both sides. That's what I'm saying. And I think an inability to acknowledge that is also a big, big reason so many Black women struggle. My thing is, if you want to actually be married and have a successful relationship, you're likely going to have to address and address and unravel every major belief that was imparted to you as a Black woman. Black American women specifically. We were not trained how to trust men. We were not trained how to value and respect men. We were not trained how to value and respect ourselves barely. We were definitely not trained to how to the value of submission and cooperation. We were not trained the value of marriage. We equated marriage or relationship with oppression or with abuse. Some of us maybe even saw some of that, so we're traumatized. And then, like I said, just there's no positive messages coming from mainstream culture as it relates to Black American women and Black love that reflect healthy long-term relationships. My thing is, if you grew up in Black America as a Black woman, in order to find any long-lasting love, you're likely going to have to actively address the things that you were taught. Period. And discuss it. Like, you're likely going to have to do that. I found that that's what I've had to do. In my own journey, even in my own marriage, there's constantly ideas I have to address and be like, oh, that's not healthy. That's not of God. That's not conducive of a happy marriage. Things that you wouldn't even consider. Things that you wouldn't even consider. You know what I mean? So, y'all, that's what I have for now. We've done a lot. I've been in here almost 2.5 hours. It's been a long one. If you guys like what's going on here, you already know the drill. Like, share, subscribe. Show some love on CASHAPP, Super Chat, Venmo. Y'all know the grill. And yeah, I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up because I'm getting tired and hungry, and I still need to go to the gym. So, like I said, there's more to cover off. But I think we went over a lot today, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts. For those of you guys who are catching the replay gang, yeah, feel free to do so. Leave your thoughts, comments down in the comment section. Y'all let me know what you think. Shout out to you also. I think some of you guys said you sent me some examples. You were sending me some examples in like email or X or whatever. So I'm going to check that out. And we will likely continue this conversation because this conversation is really ongoing. But yeah, if you guys are on the replay gang, let me know what you think about this particular post. She has like a part 2, 3 or whatever. So if you guys want me to review it, I can. Also, yeah, like I said, just like it if you want to see it. Hype it if you want. Show some love on the CASHAPP. You already know the whole spiel. But just let me know if you guys think it would be worth to follow up with her second and third part, the sociology of where all the successful Black men are. So it's supposedly a numbers-driven look at education, income, and the modern Black marriage market. So it's supposed to be looking at the numbers around Black marriage, love, and how that it essentially impacts Black love. So Y'all let me know if you guys want to continue this conversation and look at some of these other ideas that have gotten some traction.